What's up, Headless Horde? Welcome back to the channel. So let's talk about this finale. So we got the Skeleton Crew finale, and it wasn't the greatest thing I've ever seen. It is not the worst thing I've ever seen. Although I did like the season in a whole, I do wish that we would have got a little bit more from the finale. But let's go ahead and break this thing down, and then I'll give you out some predictions, and I'll give you all of my final thoughts on the series as a whole. The finale begins with Jod feeling the pressure of keeping his true identity hidden. After being questioned by Farah and Wendell about their children's behavior during their recent adventures, Jod then takes control of the situation. He decides to confine the 4 kids to their quarters and assigns the droids to watch over them. This would prevent any slip-up that could possibly expose his secret. Wendell seems very uneasy about this extreme action, but doesn't intervene. Spotting that Fern could be the biggest threat to his plans, Jod decides to take her along to meet the supervisor, claiming it's a lesson in responsibility. Farah volunteers to join them, completing an unlikely trio. As they ride the lift to the supervisor's office, Wendell and Wim head home to have dinner. Wim nearly reveals Jod's secret, but ends up catching himself, leaving Wendell to kind of question what he was about to say. Later on that night, Wim and Neo try to come up with a plan in order to rescue Fern. But the droids are eavesdropping, and Neo doesn't want to risk any more trouble. Back in the supervisor's office, we now see Jod, Fern, and Farah arrive. The atmosphere is quite eerie. It definitely has vibes of Emperor Palpatine's throne room in Return of the Jedi. The space is filled with dust-covered desks and outdated computers, giving the impression of abandonment. Jod questions if the place is deserted, but Farah assures him that everything is fine. At the center of the room, they meet the supervisor, revealed to be a large droid who has been overseeing Ad Aden. When finding out the supervisor was indeed a robot and not a man, the first thing I could think of is that he looked just like an Imperial probe droid that we see in Empire Strikes Back. The supervisor expresses a strange interest in Fern and becomes suspicious of Jod. When Jod introduces himself as a Republic emissary and Jedi, the supervisor reveals that his last communication from the Republic labeled all Jedi as traitors. Now this tells us that they really have been in isolation ever since Order 66 occurred. Realizing Jod is lying about his purpose, the supervisor orders droids to apprehend him. Jod reacts swiftly, igniting his lightsaber and destroying the supervisor, which in return shuts down power across the entire planet. And here we have another small Easter egg as we see Jod destroy the supervisor just the way that Qui-Gon Jinn tries to open up the blast doors in The Phantom Menace. Now this move exposes Jod's real intentions. He plans to use the planet's people to work for him, aiming to gain wealth and power. Farah reluctantly agrees to help Jod pass through the barrier surrounding the planet, but Jod threatens her and Fern with his lightsaber to ensure her cooperation. Meanwhile, Wim and Wendell watch as Jod's frigate begins attacking the people of Ad Aden. Determined to help, they join Neo and KB, who have a plan to bring reinforcements. As the group is being chased by pirates and overcoming other obstacles, Wendell uses his technical skills to reroute power and release a ship trapped by docking clamps. Neo destroys the pirates with a powerful weapon, though it's destroyed before he can go do much damage. KB manages to send Ad Aden's coordinates to the New Republic, but the barrier still possesses a huge problem because the signal will not get through it. Back in the supervisor's office, Fern and Farah devise a plan to stop Jod by stealing his blaster. Jod catches them and fires a warning shot, tightening his control. While he broadcasts a message demanding the planet's citizens to obey him, Wim bluffs that he's summoned help from the Republic using a crystal from the mountains. Fern supports the lie, distracting Jod long enough for Wendell to restore power and lower the barrier. As chaos unfolds, Jod shares his backstory. As a child, he was starving and hopeless until a Jedi gave him hope and promised to train him. Her death shattered his faith and turned him bitter. Jod admits he doesn't want to hurt anyone, only to gain control and escape his hardships. Despite his story, Wendell punches him, aka George McFly style, and a chaotic struggle ensues. Fern and Wim wrestle with Jod for his lightsaber, while Wendell and Farah attempt to pull the lever to lower the barrier. Jod tries to fight off all four of them by using the Force, but eventually he fails and the lever is pulled, and this allows the New Republic to arrive to defeat the pirates. Jod watches his dreams of wealth crumble as the New Republic destroys his frigate. Despite everything, there's a moment of mutual respect between Jod and the children. The families reunite, discovering KB and SM-33 survived their crash landing, and the New Republic ships fly overhead as the finale ends on a hopeful note with the kids ready for new adventures. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, I think it was a great show. Was it groundbreaking? Was it the best thing we've ever seen from Star Wars? Obviously not, but it was much better than some of the newer stuff that we have seen. And, overall, I thought the character development was great. I really, really like the character of Jod, but I do have a few small issues with the finale. So, number one, I want to start off by talking about KB. Now, I understand at this point, after watching all of this, we kind of get like an episode for each character to kind of really develop, and we kind of get a little backstory. I just wish we got more, and I'm not mad that it didn't link to other parts of Star Wars. Unfortunately, we are going to be heading toward the sequel trilogy. There's not much we can do unless they're going to try to do something in the Ahsoka series, which honestly is our last hope. I think that not really talking more about KB and how she got the chip in her head and all that stuff, I feel like that was a huge miss. Also, I think it's kind of obvious that Fern, I think, is a character that we will probably end up seeing again, as they are almost making her like a young Princess Leia. I really, really get the same type of vibes from her that I got from Leia from watching A New Hope. Neil, for me, was probably the weakest of the characters. Neil had his little episode in 4, which I thought was the worst episode of the entire season. And after that episode, I don't know if Neil has more than 10 minutes of screen time. I really think that he was just there early on for a bit of comedy, and he doesn't really do much until that one scene in the finale with the gun. Wim probably grew the most, although I still find Wim a little bit annoying, I guess. But I can see how Wim, at the end, he's staring up at the sky, and he will probably be back in some form as part of the Rebel Alliance. Finally, we have SM-33. I think we pretty much all knew he wasn't going to die, so we did end up getting him back, and they'll fix him right up, so that's not real shocking. The other disappointing thing that I had was it was a great ending to episode 7, and it literally does nothing. Like, he's just showing he's a Jedi, basically, by showing his lightsaber. I think, again, we all know he wasn't going to just go apeshit and kill everybody. That's not really the way they built his character. I think having that teaser, it just, I don't know. For me, I wish they didn't even do that now after seeing what actually happens. Let's talk briefly about the adults. I think Wendell is probably the weakest character in the entire series. Obviously, he's a workaholic. I guess that the parents knew that the supervisor was a droid because Farah was not shocked in any way. Now, I don't know if a bunch of adults who live on this planet And again, we never really get to see how much of a planet we have here. You know, we only kind of see that one little shot that we get a couple different times of the neighborhood. And really the rest of the shots are some woods. We get a shot from this, the school. But really, I don't know how big the planet is as far as life. Is the whole planet basically doing the same thing? We just happen to be part of the story where the supervisor is. So it's hard to tell. That would be the only criticism I would have of the actual filming of the series, because again, we never just get a wide shot of what the planet is and how many people are living on it and so on and so forth. But let's just say the planet is full. I just am hard pressed to believe that all of these humans are okay for working for a droid, because again, it seems like they know, or it could just be Farah, I guess, that knows. But I don't know. I think we're supposed to assume that everybody knew who they were working for, and it just seems a little odd to me. Now, back in episode 4, when the crew goes to at Akron, we see that the entire place is kind of destroyed. We see that there's some tribes there trying to battle over the livestock, and we see that the place has kind of been ripped apart, and there's no sign of who this captain is or who the leader is, because all of these statues are broken down and the faces are removed, and we have coordinates that have been destroyed. Because that's the biggest disappointment, I think, in the series, is that they never really go through who this Captain Renaud is either. What's the point of hiding his face? Now, granted, they could definitely have plans for season 2. And, unfortunately, the ratings on this show are good, but the viewership is lower than The Acolyte. And, this is the biggest problem, because if The Acolyte did not get renewed because of the actual viewership, I just don't see how they can renew this one. And I think it's disappointing that we didn't really get some of these answers that we've been sitting here talking about for the last 6 to 7 weeks. Another example is kind of just like that lightsaber that they find over in episode 5. It's just kind of sitting there. Like, there's no explanation for it. And, could it be Renaud's? Sure. Could he have stolen from a Jedi? Sure. But I don't know. I just wish there wasn't so many loose ends. I kind of chuckle when I see other articles and YouTube videos saying that all of these secrets have been revealed. Listen, I don't think any secrets were revealed. I mean, I think we all kind of assumed that Jad was probably a Force user who worked under another Jedi that he had met. Now, granted, we don't really know if it was at the Jedi Temple or not. It seems like he probably was found after the fact of Order 66. But again, it's just another example that for me, and again, if you guys loved it, that's awesome, because I did like the series. But to me, I just feel like the finale was a little bit of a disappointment. Although, for the most part, they kind of wrapped it up if there's nothing in the future. I do think we will probably end up seeing some of these characters, if not all of them, again at some point. Now, granted, these kids are probably 4 years older than what they were in the show, so that's not something that they can just go jump into and pick up right where we left off. What happened to Jad? Who really knows? There are 2 theories I have that I want to share with you before I get on out of here. The first theory is Jad. I think Jad could definitely have survived. I mean, I don't think that he's dead at all. And I think that he could have 2 different roles moving forward. Number 1, I still think we're going to get some type of redemption for him. And if not in a Skeleton Crew type show, maybe in something different in the Mandoverse. What I really would like to see is, I did have a theory a few weeks ago talking about how I thought that Fern could quite possibly be Force sensitive. And I actually had mentioned that maybe KB was too, But again, we never really get more story on KB, so it's hard to like, keep going with no new information. But I think it would be really cool if we had a Jod and a Fern, either animated series maybe, or if they're both willing to come back and we see Jod somehow get redeemed and then he ends up meeting up with Fern and finds out Fern is somewhat force sensitive, and we have that like father and daughter almost type relationship that he's going to train her. And I think that would be really cool because number one, he still is conflicted. Number two, he doesn't really know that much about the Force, according to what he's saying in this episode. So I think that would be a really unique way to kind of do something, maybe a spin-off or something like that. And then the second theory or idea I have would be, obviously they're looking at Wim as a character that can probably go join the New Republic. And I think that would be a really cool way to do it. Almost think of a teenage version of Top Gun where Neil ends up going too, and he's like the goose. And you could do a whole thing with just them two. As far as KB, I'm just disappointed. KB was one of my favorite characters after episode, I think it was 6. And I feel like KB wasn't even in the series anymore. Like, even in the finale, barely in it. And to me, that's just a little disappointing. I would give the series overall, I probably would give it a solid 7.5 to 8 out of 10. I just didn't love the finale. I would give the finale about a 5 or a 6 out of 10. And I just think that it could have been better for all of the different setups that we have. And I'm not even talking about all the connections that they could have had moving down the timeline in the Star Wars universe, obviously leading into the sequels, because we have all of these Old Republic credits. What happens now with them? What's the state of Ad-Adin? Is a New Republic going to take it over? Again, there's just a lot of different questions, and again, they may have another series on the way that we don't know about yet. They may be talking about maybe Skeleton Crew Season 2. If this series ended here, I think it was good. I think it was full of potential, but I think it ended just a little bit below my expectations. Jude Law in the series was absolutely phenomenal. That is my full recap review of the finale. Those are some of my thoughts, some of my theories. If we end up continuing on with any of these characters, I'm hoping it's not just comic books or books. I'm really hoping there's something more. Like I said, especially for me, Jod and Fern, because I think they are probably the most fully developed characters, and both can offer more. All right, guys, you let me know now. What did you think about the series? Were you happy with the way it concluded? Are you okay with all of these different little open-ended questions that we have here? Or are you good to have just a nice little Star Wars story in its own little part of the galaxy with not too much connection to the other parts of the timeline? Or are you wishing to that we got just a little bit more information, a little bit more about each character? And let me know down in the comments. Guys, thank you for watching all of these Skeleton Crew videos. I'll probably be making a few more here in the next couple weeks because I have some other thoughts. But overall, like I said, I think it was good, and I really do appreciate every single person who watches my videos and comments and shares these out. Thank you so much. Don't forget, keep those heads on, and I'll see you guys in the next video.